So,
okay, well, first of all, I don't do much in the way of back and forth sort of interviews, so I'd like you to just introduce yourself, the organization, and what we're doing here today, and kind of take the narrative onto yourself. Give me a beat.
My name's Ben Schacht, and I'm here with CASH, the Coalition Against Corporate Higher Education, and we're protesting the American Economic Association and the role that a lot of professional economists played in creating the conditions for the financial crisis and subsequently implementing neoliberal policies of austerity and so forth that hurt ordinary people and hurt working people. Economists have been complicit in a number of ways. As somebody here who cares passionately about higher education and what's happening to it, I'm here to protest the way economics curricula have become just a vehicle for very narrow theories of self-interest and rationality, which basically legitimate a system of economic organization that works for very few people and hurts the vast majority of people, hurts 99% of people. Some people that we're here to protest in particular are Greg Mankiw, professor of economics at Harvard, and Larry Summers, who I don't think he needs any introduction. Both of them have obviously played roles in government as well as in professional academic economics. Mankiw in particular is basically a high priest who encourages a culture of intellectual conformity in economics that really rivals the medieval Catholic Church in how narrow and dogmatic his views are. It'd be nice if we could get an alternative perspective on economic matters, a perspective that's just not just abstracted and totally theoretical, but one that's in touch with everybody's needs, with human needs, and ones that put human beings and organizing economic systems for human beings over the needs of profit and you know, naked capitalism.
And where do we see that sort of curriculum in academia right now?
Well, basically any introduction to economics course. Mankiw has said, you know, people walked out of his class as part of Occupy Harvard in the fall of 2011, and he said, I just teach what the mainstream economic consensus is. And he thinks that's a defense. You know, I keep policy out of the classroom. That's exactly our point. Mainstream economics, introductory economics, has become just a vehicle for these incredibly narrow theories, efficient market hypothesis, and so forth, a real dogmatic, faith-based belief in the power of the free market to solve any issue. And we're here to question that, and we think that these economists know that those theories really just legitimate an unfair, unjust system of economic organization, but they're happy to shill for that anyway. There's a study out of the University of Washington that showed that introduction to economics students who just take an intro to econ class and don't go on to major in economics, there's an indoctrination effect. These people, after taking this class, become more selfish and less generous people. These are the kind of values that economics classes are inculcating in people, and it's clear it's about legitimating a patently unjust system and not really about any kind of legitimate or coherent intellectual agenda.
And what is the alternative in academia? Where do we see that sort of curricula being taught?
Well, Steve Margolin, somebody who's here to give a talk as part of our People's Economics Conference at Roosevelt University today and tomorrow, he teaches an alternative economics course at Harvard, has fought hard to have that compete with the Mankiw-style course for the first year. He's one example of somebody who's encouraging alternative views, but I would say in general, there's a whole history of social and economic thought that people like Mankiw, who appeal to this very strict neoclassicism, totally ignore. They ignore this whole history.
Now, we've talked about neoclassicism is speculative. What are the economic schools of thought that are built on empirical, evidence?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The whole University of Massachusetts Amherst economics department does an incredible job of encouraging heterodox and alternative perspectives grounded in real research and ones that don't make a priori appeals to supply and demand and the invisible hand as some kind of wise god of the marketplace. They look at working people's lives, they look at women's lives, they look at the lives of minorities, and they see empirically how they're affected by this current social and political system. That's the kind of economics education that people need, I think.
You mentioned very briefly the invisible hand, and this is one of the most outrageous things that I've ever heard about in economic theory. Expound on that just a little bit.
Well, so people appeal to the invisible hand as some kind of natural or almost deistic entity, which
and this is free market.
Yeah, this is a free market idea, and the idea is that the forces of supply and demand inevitably distribute resources in the most efficient manner possible, and any attempt to defy the logic of the invisible hand inevitably brings its wrath wrath down upon all of us. So doing things like encouraging a living wage for people when CEOs are making 400% of what the average employee makes. We're told by economists like Greg Mankiw, no, the invisible hand will get angry at us. And I think it's clear that this is a totally made-up, faith-based way of looking at economics, and we're here to encourage people to open their eyes and instead of believing in a theoretical construct like the invisible hand, to look around them, see the suffering that this economic system causes, and do something to change it.
Well, thank you so very much for talking with us today.
Thanks very much.